is it that big a difference, this terrorism issue and, the mass shooting issue that we have here by the guys similar to the one Eric just mentioned, the Joker guy? If it's not an Arab, he's going to have other enemies. We saw the guy try to kill people in California because girls didn't like him. We saw the guy in South Carolina shoot up a church. We saw a guy go into a movie theater in Louisiana for no goddamn reason. We kill so many more Americans than terrorists ever could dream of doing. Why are we so focused? I mean, obviously, they killed a lot more people in Paris, and you can kill a lot more people in a terrorist attack like the one in Egypt, like the one in Madrid, and of course 9/11, which is the only really big one to happen here. But we have 3 times as many, or 4 times as many people killed each year as were killed on 9/11.
It's once again, it boils down to racism and the imagery of the terrorist, the guy with the head wrap on, the big
black
beard.
people and Mexican people and Muslim people shoot people too.
Yes, no, of course, I'm not denying that. But if you put up 3 pictures and you say which one is the enemy, most people are going to point at the terrorist, and that's just the way we've been trained through media constantly talking about it. The idea of the wars, the idea that they attack us in vulnerable ways. Sure, we have our own mass shootings. But for whatever reason, if you say a mass shooting or 9/11, everybody's going to see 9/11 or even the Paris attack as something that's more aggravating and something that we want to stop, but we can't. And so it galvanizes people to be angry and to look at the Middle East as this big problem.
I think we should start bombing angry white men in America. They're obviously the most significant threat to us. Look, it's racism, and it's the need for a handy, convenient, recognizable bully. If you go back and look, for example, look at Hollywood movies over the last, say, 70 years since World War II, and who the sort of prime villains were. The Germans were in some of these movies, but once the Japanese came along, man, they made much better villains, and they had a much more staying power, and the portrayals were far more racist. Once we got to the Cold War, the Russians had a good run all through the James Bond movies and a lot of our war movies. There was a gap where we weren't sure who the bad guys were, and they kept trying to fill it in with North Koreans or evil masterminds, Dr. Evil kind of characters. But boy, once 9/11 happened, we had it. It was the Muslims. And it was great. You could put a headscarf on them and put some shoe polish to darken up their skin, hand them an AK-47, and bang, instant villain. It's great to have that, and it portrays, I think, our narrow-mindedness and our almost pathological desire to blame anyone but ourselves for what's happening to us.
You're exactly right, though, because having studied the Cold War through university, basically the United States has always had to have an enemy. And as Peter was saying, first it was the Germans, then it was the Japanese, then the Russians, then there was the Gap, then it was the Muslim population. And this is something that you can easily see through almost the entire history of the country. If you even go further back than that, you have at a certain point the British, of course. So the idea that the United States always needs an enemy is relevant. It exists, and for now, the Muslims are such an easy target because they know how to antagonize the West, especially through these terror attacks. Whether these terror attacks are relevant and need this much exposure, they're an easy way to piss the West off and to get us, into the fight, unfortunately.
Well, I think a simpler explanation would be, car crashes kill thousands more people than plane crashes ever will, but, which one do people fear getting into most?